Have you ever heard of police officers engaging in prostitution? Many years ago, to cater to perverts who harass women on trains, Japan introduced adult clubs with simulated train carriages. In the arranged carriages, perverts could legally harass women who were playing the role of passengers. But even the most audacious Japanese couldn't imagine that one day, in adult clubs, they could pay for the services of real police officers. In 2019, someone discovered explicit photos of a real police officer on the homepage of a certain adult entertainment club in Osaka, Japan. The description said that she looked like a schoolgirl in her uniform but had an enchanting figure once she took it off. The service price was 14,000 yen for 60 minutes. The information on the female police officer's daily updated homepage that today's items were sold out made countless citizens exclaim in irony. Because this dedicated female police officer's daily job was to catch audacious and brazen perverts on the crowded trains. After this explosive news came out, Japanese citizens' attitudes towards the police changed dramatically. They angrily questioned the Japanese government, asking where their dignity was. Where is the adult entertainment venue where the female cop worked part-time? Ultimately, the Japanese government persuaded the police officer to resign voluntarily. But it was not the first time police officers changed professions. Previously, there were reports of police officers working part-time in Kanagawa, Yamaguchi, Osaka, and other places. And it wasn't just female officers. Male lieutenants, standing 180 centimeters tall, also claimed to provide gentlemanly pampering to customers. Besides police officers, other public officials also left government jobs for the private sector. For example, a female teacher arrested multiple times for streetwalking, who also worked part-time at 8 adult clubs and was a tax office employee who didn't pay taxes. There was also a mayor's secretary who handled city business while working part-time in the adult industry, and so on. What makes Japanese people so drawn to the adult industry? What kind of support has the Japanese government provided to the adult industry? How hard is it to get arrested by the Japanese government for soliciting prostitution? The answer, according to Japanese law, is as hard as climbing to the sky. In 1957, the Japanese government enacted the Prostitution Prevention Law, which is full of legal loopholes, stating that prostitution is illegal, just like in other countries. However, it didn't specify how to punish those who buy or sell sex. Japanese people who want to break the law often feel a deep sense of powerlessness. According to the definition, breaking the law requires meeting 3 conditions: unspecified targets, sexual intercourse, and compensation. This means that if any of these 3 conditions can be casually and forcibly justified, one can make a quick getaway. The reason why Japan's famous adult service, Soapland, is legal is because it includes a massage step. The shop can explain that the masseuse and the customer became familiar enough during the massage, so the customer is no longer an unspecified target, but a specific one like a lover or partner. What happens afterward is no longer related to breaking the law. Even more absurdly, even if the law is strictly broken, getting arrested is not easy. A Japanese law firm's website explains it this way: if you engage in prostitution, you violate the Prostitution Prevention Law. However, there is no provision for punishment based solely on the fact that someone engaged in prostitution. Ridiculous laws like this are not limited to just one. For instance, in Japanese criminal law, the crime of distributing obscene materials is defined in a rather strict manner. The image remains the same. As long as it passes the review of Japan's ethics agency and is mosaicked, it can be distributed in the market. As a result, some Japanese companies have started using thin mosaic technology. Under such strict laws, Japan quickly cultivated a loyal user base. In 2011, Japan's pornography industry dominated the world. Japan ranked second in the world with an average expenditure of $157 per person. At the same time, with less than half the population of the United States, Japan produced twice as many adult films as the US. Various strange products in Japan are also being updated with various strange images. To some extent, Japan's lenient laws have become like the government's last line of defense. Moreover, Japan's sex industry is extremely stable. Even during the financial crisis that devastated Japan, the sex industry continued to progress steadily, serving as a stabilizing force for the Japanese economy. Japanese economist Takafumi Kadokura estimates that the market size of Japan's sex-related industries is about 7.7 trillion yen, which is enough for the Japanese government to pay the salaries of all civil servants. But the question remains, under the leniency of the Japanese government, what has this booming pillar industry ultimately brought to the Japanese people? According to a report by Yahoo Japan, real wages in Japan have hardly increased at all over the past 30 years. However, university tuition fees in Japan have risen to levels difficult for ordinary people to reach. In 1975, the tuition fee for national universities was about 36,000 yen per year, and for private universities, it was about 180,000 yen. But by 2021, the tuition fee for national universities was almost 15 times that of 1975, about 540,000 yen. Private universities, making up over 80% of Japan's private higher education institutions, reached an exaggerated 930,000 yen. Amid a sluggish economy and rising tuition fees, students from less affluent families must take out loans to complete their studies. These student loans, however, have deceptively misleading names: scholarships. According to a 2020 survey by the Japan Student Services Organization, which is operated by the Japanese government, 49.6% of university students use loan scholarships to attend school. These government-backed scholarships, however, become the beginning of their suffering. A Japanese blogger shared that his friend was a victim of the 3/11 tsunami in Japan. After losing his home, he had to apply for a scholarship loan of up to 8 million yen. At the same time, to avoid further debt, he began working around the clock. But the result of his hard work was that he couldn't graduate because he had no time to study. A 2024 survey by the Japan University Co-op Association shows that about 70% of loan scholarship recipients worry about future repayments. The part-time employment rate for Japanese university students is 74%. Ironically, Japan's sex industry is exploiting hardships from the lack of scholarships, frantically luring university students. Japanese adult websites are self-righteously exposing the true nature of national scholarships. They tell people that even if you find a job at 22, it will take almost until 42 to pay off the student loan. He uses his predecessor's experiences to warn that a young person burdened with huge debts before entering society is likely to fall into a debt trap where they borrow to repay, interest accumulates, and the debt grows larger. They also tell people that the guarantor system for scholarships ties the parents or relatives who act as guarantors firmly to the debt. If the loan is not repaid in a timely manner, the guarantor's house or other valuable property may be seized as a consequence. You might not care about yourself, but can you really put your family and loved ones at risk? The owner of a rapidly growing entertainment shop, capitalizing on the trend of youth poverty, commented on Japanese education like this: "The number of female students entering prestigious universities is increasing. They are very smart and have the ability to quickly absorb and understand what we teach them. Most importantly, they are well-mannered and polite, which is why they are popular with customers." As I mentioned earlier, education is incredibly important. By the way, have you ever heard of the literal combat strategy? Originally a military term, it refers to the strategy of eliminating enemies at the water's edge. But it later became a common strategy used by the Japanese government to discourage applicants for relief funds. Staff members use various dignity-trampling behaviors to make applicants lose the courage to apply for relief funds. Unemployed and economically disadvantaged young mothers are one of the main targets of this strategy. Compared to the cold and unfeeling government welfare agencies, the Japanese sex industry appears to be quite warm. They offer a full range of services for women with nowhere to go, including employment, childcare assistance, and housing. As a Japanese NHK reporter put it, to some extent, sex shops have become a lifeline for these women. When aging became a social issue in Japan, the Japanese sex industry released the powerful economic potential of niche terms like silver-haired erotica with a sense of irony. Industry insiders claim that adult films generate about $20 billion in revenue annually, with films featuring wrinkled men and women accounting for 20% to 30% of the market. Outperforming the government has become the Japanese sex industry's powerful strategy to ensnare the public. It continuously erodes people's resistance to the sex industry, perpetuating the pathological belief that any problem can be solved by entering the sex industry. Besides issues like moral decline, compensated dating, and sex trafficking, even the frequent exposure of scandals involving a large number of public officials becoming top prostitutes has not prompted the Japanese government to act. Like a doctor afraid of pus and blood, the Japanese government is reluctant and afraid to squeeze out the abscess that is the sex industry.